Welcome to Keeping Up with Our Community, a podcast for and about Romeo Community Schools. Each week, we will invite different guests to share insights about some unique aspects of our schools. This podcast is powered by the Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than Mitt TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, my name is Marianne Brush, Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools, and this is a special edition of our Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast. This podcast is focused on our 2025 Facilities Bond Proposal for the November 4 election. With us to discuss the district's continuing transformation are Superintendent Dr. Todd Robinson and principals of 3 schools that will be directly impacted by this zero tax rate increase bond proposal. I will now turn it over to Dr. Robinson to lead the discussion, beginning with introducing our guests.
Thank you, Marianne, for that introduction. I think it's probably best to take a minute and introduce our panel here today. So, Mr. Osbold, will you start the introductions?
Hi, good morning or afternoon or whenever you're listening. This is Bernie Osbold, principal at Romeo High School.
This is Paul Essian, principal at Hevel Elementary.
And Dana Hepner, principal at Washington Elementary.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. You know, we're past the midpoint of the campaign for the November 4th, bond, and we're just looking to continually provide different resources for the community to just get the information out. Because this, we talk about this, we've been talking about this since last spring. Like, our job is to inform and encourage that everyone exercise their right to vote. So we decided, hey, let's bring a component of this to our podcast forum and also, provide this in video format as well, because some folks might watch it that way from the website. So I've been out on the road. You know that I've met with your staff and parents, and we've had some community forums. We're hopeful that this might reach some folks in the community that really, it's not getting a lot of media attention, because this isn't a midterm election where we're talking about a governor or a presidential election. It's a special election that the board called. And in our community, it's actually the only thing on the ballot. So why don't we just start with a few of the high-level facts about the election, and Dana, I'll shoot it over to you first.
Sure. Well, this is a $62 million proposal to support updates and upgrades within the district, and it comes at a zero tax rate increase for our community members.
With that, funding for Phase 5 of the long-range plan has been going on for a decade now.
Yeah.
And thanks for leaving this to me. This is special to me, and I love the fiscal responsibility of our community. And this is we actually have the third lowest debt retirement rate in Macomb County at 3.85 mils, and that will not change. And what that just means is compared to all the other school districts in Macomb County, we have the third lowest taxes that go to our schools. And to know that and see what we've been able to do already is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think arguably we've got a little bit of trust, street cred, whatever you call it, and one of the things is I've talked to community members is, it's okay for someone to say again, like, really, and so we talk about that whole notion of the long range plan, and it's really been a decade in the making, and it actually, the 2016 bond passed. I've actually had a community member and a staff member say, well, wait a minute, you weren't here then. When did you come again? And I said, yeah, you're right. But when we looked at the limitations of the blessing of the 2016 bond, we began to see long range, what are the needs? And so I think it's important that people understand that in the development of any bond, we lean heavily on a facilities assessment. And that tells us the things that need to be replaced, you know what I'm saying, that are going to get to end of life. And Paul, I always like telling people outside of the high school, Hevel's always the new building, but the new building is 20 years old now. So in 2016 and 2021, the facilities assessments we did at that time, they didn't have a ton of replacement needs or, at Hevel. But you're in the seat now. You know what I'm saying? It's time to replace, 20 years plus later, you've got some infrastructure. So the other thing that's been unique is, our theme for for this campaign has been reaching the finish together. And that represents this journey of the 5-phase plan. And it's important that people know that when we laid the plan out, we didn't know some of the things that we have in this bond weren't specifically known. And you're here today because we want to talk about the new additions. We knew we can project where we need square footage numbers on potential new additions. And that's really what it was initially. Over time, it's evolved into the specific need because of the input we get from staff, from our leadership team, from the community. And so we didn't know everything 10 years ago. We could predict with that facilities assessment a lot of the infrastructure need, but these new additions that we'll talk about before we're done today, some we had a better vision for than others. The specificity of it really has come together in the last year with the work we've done to develop the Treasury app. The other unique thing with this campaign, is we're grateful. There's no secret that we're grateful for the support of the community because the transformation of our facilities would not have been remotely possible. And Dana and Paul, I think about, you've worked here for a long time, you know what I'm saying? And you were an employee here when it was super hard to get anything passed and things were really tired. Dana, I remember the first time I met you at Washington and I looked at that floor and I was like, oh Lord.
Our beautiful salmon floor.
Yes, like that's from a different era of design. So I'd just like to take a minute and allow you the opportunity to just kind of highlight from 2016 or 2021 a few examples, that how it's impacted your building, that you're proud of and grateful for. So Bernie, you want to start?
Yeah, we were very fortunate in 2016. Of course, the new high school was the big project, and it was great to be able to build a school along with that new academy model that we were putting in, which really not only just gave us the facilities that we were looking for, but it also allowed us to change the learning experience for our kids, and that's something that we'll continue to talk about today. Of course, in addition to the new high school, we finished Barnable Stadium, adding the turf field, and then we started that project of that one campus of getting all of our fields and activities to that one spot. And that's with the 2021 bond, we were able to finish that. So we were able to renovate the 9th grade academy, which was Powell Middle School years ago, and then also bring all those athletic fields to the one campus. So that's something we've been able to achieve in the last 9 years or so.
Shout out to Mr. Breinert.
Mr. Breinert, yes.
His one campus vision and that. So Paul, how about over at Hevel?
So I think even at Hevel and really all the buildings, one of the big things that we got out of the bond was the secure entries. Safety is always our number one job as administrators. So having that in place was awesome to have. Our student technology, our teacher technology, the things that we can do and transform learning for our students is amazing. Simple things like furniture updates or transforming pods for collaborative learning spaces. Not only did it affect Hevel, but it affected all the different buildings. We've all had some kind of an upgrade to what this system was.
Yeah, you think about, 12, 15 years ago, we began to have that conversation about learning needs to happen in different ways, and that whole notion of collaborative learning, and we were pretty rigid. I think every school to some extent was pretty rigid, and there's classrooms and there's hallways and there's these other bigger spaces, and that was it. So in the case of Hevel, we didn't add on, we didn't do anything like that, but we took a space that had a purpose, and even with just furniture, you can transform an area into a collaborative learning space. So that definitely has impacted. I see our teachers on the new, interactive display panels, and gosh, Dana, I think about you probably taught a lot of math with an overhead projector, didn't you?
Yes.
And we thought we fully arrived when we thought we fully arrived when we got document cameras, So how about at Washington, Dana?
Yeah, well, you mentioned our lovely pink salmon colored floors when I started there, but really so many updates to our building and classroom refreshes with new flooring throughout our building, updates to some of our bathrooms with more to come. Our ceilings, classroom lighting, which seems so minor, but at the elementary level, when you have those real harsh lights, it can be really helpful to the environment for learning when you can soften those, and teachers have the ability to regulate those as well. Our new STEM room we opened last year, which was very exciting and is getting all sorts of amazing use from our students and our staff. And then over the summer, we got phase 1 of our new playground, and that has been just a delight to see.
Yeah, it is. I did not, like, I was hugely excited about, Bernie, when the new baseball and softball field, and you just see that. I remember talking to a member of the community who, well, that hasn't been a thing. It wasn't a thing for my kids, and it never was. And I just suggested, like, look, if you're over in the area of the new high school and you got time, pull all the way through that 9th grade, academy parking lot and just get out and walk down the sidewalk. And it doesn't matter what you know about baseball or softball. You're going to have a sense of pride of, that's right, And then when your relative at Thanksgiving starts talking about their facilities, you can be like, wait, you have no idea. So we're grateful for our community and that impact. And Dana, you talk about the STEM room, and it's important to connect that to, hadn't thought about that until you said this, but like, I remember all the way back to enhancing elementary specials. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And the decision to expand that additional learning time, create the STEM, the STEM class, and then say, let's design the spaces. We renovated a previous space, Paul, at your building, and we've added on at the other elementaries to support that. And that's hard for people to see is, we've been super intentional about any opportunity we have to leverage bond dollars to impact curriculum and instruction. I've had this conversation, and I listened to people from our construction management company, our architects, and they say that, like, they tell other clients, like, you should engage with Romeo because they're a leader in making decisions that are directly impactful on students. So let's talk a little bit under that lens of transforming teaching and learning. And I just ask each of you to share specific to that lens, how the previous bond work has impacted the instructional program, which ultimately inherently impacts the student experience. Paul, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned it already. Number one job as an administrator is safety of our kids. Mm-hmm. And, I know at Dr. Emson, you and I have had conversations with parents already about safety around our students and safety around our buildings and helping them feel better about what we have in place to ensure that their kids that are with us as much as they are feeling safe. So it starts with those secured entryways, and it's, how parents and visitors are buzzed into our building and what background things we do to check to know that our kids are going to have a safe environment to learn, because kids can't learn without feeling safe. And that starts physical safety, and then it goes into the emotional safety. And doing what we did with the secured entryways across the district has been phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, that is such a parent thing. And, and things changed. Things changed back in 2000, mm-hmm. and they got real close back in 21. And I was grateful that we had already taken some significant steps that other communities, other districts didn't have the opportunity to do because they didn't have this type of funding that doesn't come, in our annual budget from the state. It just doesn't work that way in Michigan. And where we've gotten unique safety funding, that is not at the level to do those type of facility renovations, surveillance or anything. Yep. Anything else, Paul?
Really, it just comes down to all the different things that we're doing to make our buildings better for our students and the learning process. So there's so many different bond projects that we've done that are continuing to enhance the learning for our students.
Yeah. Dana?
Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit on what Mr. Essien was saying, the work we've put into our classrooms, make them cleaner, quieter, more adaptable with the new furniture that we chose in order for kids to move around into flexible grouping. and create really some pride and ownership more than anything in the classrooms that look cleaner and brighter for our students to learn in. It just sets a better tone all the way around. I think we talk about our STEM room, and hands-on learning is so important, and now we truly have a space that's designed and dedicated to be able to get kids, using technology and math and engineering and science and building things and having the place to store those things, display those things, revise those things, and continue to work on has been wonderful.
Yeah, because that was happening in the media center before.
Correct. And the trickle down of that, even kind of opens up our media center to be able to use that as another collaborative space. So you think about adding only one building or one room, but what that ends up opening up and the other possibilities is so much more significant than just one room.
And that just leads into the appreciation we have and wanting people to understand that it's more than maybe what they see on the ballot and outside of that. How about you, Bernie?
Yeah, I talked about this earlier. At least I brought it up of just we were super fortunate to have the ability to, again, build a new high school at the same time we were changing our instructional model with kids. And the academies that we have been able to put into place for the students, and we've answered those questions that kids have asked forever of why do I need to learn this? When am I ever going to use that again? Mm-hmm. And a way that we've been able to do that is, of course, all of our students are CTE completers. They choose a pathway. It's something they're interested in that might lead to a future profession. So we had some spaces that we were able to keep or improve, like our construction classroom, our culinary arts. And then we were able to create spaces that we always kind of wanted, kind of like what Ms. Hepner was saying, where we were kind of making it work somewhere else. We were able to actually create a video production classroom or robotics or our IT classes and our medical classes. So it's just been a great opportunity for us to truly transform the way that our kids learn. Again, talking like the elementaries as well, of having these collaborative spaces that teachers can take kids out to, and they can kind of work together and learning those collaboration skills that are so important to our young adults as they go into the workplace, and giving that opportunity to learn that here at the high school level. So it's been really great. And of course, it's been wonderful. Not only that we're seeing, maybe I shouldn't say this, but we're becoming probably one of the most sought after high schools and districts in the state of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know that that's because of the investment that our community has made into us, and then us taking that seriously and being, facilitators and good stewards of that money and putting it to good use. And again, focusing on the kids, because that's why we're all here.
Yeah. And so the vision comes for the future. And Dana, you've mentioned a couple things that I think maybe need at least mention. And that's, we talk about some of, these lighting, we haven't mentioned significant investment in, heating and cooling equipment and controls and things like that. And, if we're candidly honest, I'm not sure we've ever been in a school building where every classroom felt the right temperature. And you talk to people in industry that have large office spaces. It's just a challenge, I think, in the industrial HVAC system. But, we're good stewards of the dollars that we have as well, because we're creating energy efficiency. Mm-hmm. Replacing those classroom lights, it's amazing how that's impacted our utility costs. And when you replace old heating and cooling equipment with new and innovative technology driven controls, now it's closer to operating a thermostat like we might in our home. So let's look forward and shed some light on this notion of reaching the finish together. The disclaimer that I feel like I've had to put on this is, we created this long-range plan. We felt really confident about dividing it into 5 phases, but we didn't know when the money would be available. And quite honestly, remember when our financial advisor reached out to us that the opportunity would be there in 2021. That was in 2020. You remember what we were doing in 2020? Well, we won't talk about that, but it's like, I was like, are you kidding me? In the middle of all of this. But so that one really surprised me, just because of the uniqueness of where we were at in the world, and the focus on us just trying to figure out how to do school. Because of that opportunity in 2021, Vicki Lasky and myself could begin to see, okay, maybe there's a cadence to this. But, we had to make some decisions in 2023 when the 2021 bond financially was going to fall short because we couldn't have ever planned for the escalation that happened in material costs, labor costs. And whether we want to call it inflationary, recessionary, it doesn't really matter. By the time we got to the halfway point, we at the district, leadership level began to say like, hey, our dollars aren't going to go as far. We knew that just in trying to buy a gallon of milk. We had plenty of real examples. So, we made some intentional decisions to say, if we're going to fall short, then what were those projects that needed to be set aside? And in 2023, when the board approved an updated construction timeline and we created that list of deferred projects, once again, we did not know at that time that this opportunity was going to be here now, but we're grateful to see those through. So when we think about the 2025 bond, and how that would play out, we've got this combination of what I've been saying is, updates, from the facilities assessment. There's still things we need to update because they're getting to end of life. But then there's also the notion of upgrades, and you've given great examples of how we've been able to change, meet the demands of today's students, and what teaching and learning should be. So talk a little bit about your new addition, because you're the only you're the three facilities that are getting some form of a new addition that's planned. What is it? Why is there this need? And then ultimately, what's that impact on the program moving forward? So
Want me to start?
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Happy to. So kind of going back to what you were saying about our new plan,
Yeah.
we didn't know exactly how many opportunities would be ahead of us. And I think back to some of the earlier conversations and then relate that to where we are now. And we almost received a gift to be able to have that additional time to think through. 'Cause
Yes.
I know at Washington, we got a STEM room. Some of the other elementaries had a STEM room, an art room, and a music room. And there was some conversation about that. But what we ended up really noticing was that bringing a new music room or just, those 3 additional rooms at Washington would not have given us the same benefits as perhaps it did in another building just because of space, the design of our building. And so the conversation came around adding a new cafeteria at Washington. Our cafeteria is on the opposite side of the building of our playground. So being able to relocate a cafeteria closer to our playground goes back to that safety and security issue that Mr. Essien was talking about earlier. We have a 1950s cafeteria that was originally built as a gym. It's very small, it's very crowded, and it's very loud. But then being able to redo our cafeteria to another side, and then we can talk later about the other opportunities that they will present, kind of goes back to, it seems like just a cafeteria, but in essence, it is the opportunity around it is so much greater because of the other impact at the rest of our building. And then the other big one is a new traffic loop for our parents for drop off. Everybody knows when school starts and when school ends at Washington Elementary because you can't get down Van Dyke.
Yes.
So I think our community would really appreciate being able to make that path a little bit smoother and cleaner.
And that's unique to your site, because when I think about our traffic woes, people talk about Jewel Road and Bernie, you and your staff, with your kids involved, have really done yeoman's work to create a plan. We know in our conversations with the Department of Roads, Jewel Road isn't up on their their hierarchy of roads that need intervention, because the development isn't there yet. And we're really talking about 2 pockets of 20 minutes a day, and they do their traffic counts in that, and we're like, we appreciate the notion, but we could show you a laundry list of areas that just unfortunately have to get the attention with the limited funding they get. So it's that, but really we talk about 32 Mile at the middle school and 29 Mile at Indian Hills, and then this Van Dyke at Washington. And a facility like Indian Hills, we're handcuffed because there just isn't the space. So to have that space, Dana, to create a parent drop-off loop, down the south side of the building, and just literally get more cars off of Van Dyke, is going to help traffic flow better. And
100%. And to make it a little safer for our kids too, because it's a
Yeah.
very small lot with a lot of cars and a lot of people. So
yeah, and rethink the crosswalk. You know,
could we
we'll,
please rethink the crosswalk?
yes. So opportunity. Paul, how about Hevel?
So a lot of people may not know it, but Hevel hosts or holds all grades K through 5 for all 5 elementaries intensive resource students. So I know Dr. Robinson, you and I have talked a lot because 5 years ago we had 2 sections of intensive resource room, and at that time it was maybe 20-25 kids. As we stand now, we're closing in on 60 kids in the program, looking at determining between 4 and 5 classrooms. And then you take a look at the space that your school naturally has. And so we've been very creative in the way that we've been able to service our kids. But this would provide an opportunity to have all the programming that our most intensive needs students need to have. So you think OT, PT, social work, speech, you know, all the people, the parapros can all be in one area. The teachers are all in one area. So you think about how it takes a village to run a program. This is really what that is. And so it allows us to have that space and that opportunity to allow these students to grow in a better way while still including them in everything that we're doing in the building. So it's not like they're sectioned off. They're still going to be a part of everything we do, you know, and then it opens up spaces to do some different things in our building.
Yeah, yeah. We project that. You know what I'm saying? Like we haven't been, like it's been a 3-year process. We're like, whoa,
Yeah.
you know, and you've done a good job, but we're taking general education space that's really designed for a unique learning platform, and that's hard for any school district. You know, we're putting 2 intervention type or 2 smaller group learning environments in 1 traditional classroom. It literally be the first opportunity for us to, you know, design from the ground up.
Yep.
What does the space look like? Because we don't need those classrooms to necessarily be as big. We need a couple other learning areas because of the unique things that those students need.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, very
it's
exciting.
And, you know, it's been a pleasure for me to have that conversation, even specifically with our elementary staff across the district, because heads start nodding. You know, because they know, and there's still students in every building that receive special education services that have unique needs. This is that population that needs more.
Yeah.
And they know that, because in some cases those students have started at their building, and then we've taken the necessary steps to work with parents to get them into the right program, and that's a hard decision at times. But I think Croswell and the early childhood special ed program and the preschool programs, like, we know, like this is a thing that's going to be here. And this allows us to not only create the space, but also have some capacity to grow should we need to.
Yep.
Bernie, how about, like, 2021 didn't have a lot?
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Even going back to 2016, and at that time, with the needs assessment, we knew that there wasn't enough of the bond we were able to pass. As grateful as we are for what we did get, to do all the work that had to get done. You know, and again, as a taxpayer myself, I liked having the lower taxes and keeping it at that 3rd lowest rate.
Yeah.
So you mentioned having that 5-phase plan, and that's kind of what we're looking to finish here. So, you know, again, we knew the high school that we built wasn't going to be big enough for the growth that was coming to us, and we're hitting that now. We're kind of bursting at the seams. Like both Dana and Paul said, you know, we're getting real creative with spaces in our classroom or in our buildings to fit offices and rooms where we can, and even in doing that, 40% of our teachers are sharing in some way, shape, or form. You know, so our goal, we want to first all finish some of the projects that were planned to be done earlier. We were unable to do those. Having that auxiliary gym, and a lot of people think about that and they think it's just another space to practice basketball or volleyball, and that's going to be used, but it is an instructional space.
Yes.
We use it every single day. Having an 8-period block schedule, kids take more electives, which is great because they get to do things they want to do. a lot of kids in this town like to do athletics and like to do things, focused on physical education. So this is going to be a big help for us during the school day. And I would argue that our gym and our auxiliary gym are probably the most used spaces in the district.
Yes.
So that'll be helpful. Also looking to put that turf practice field in. And again, we have so many different teams that use this kind of field. It could be our sports teams, but also our band and cheerleading and dance practice and that as well. So just having that and living in Michigan, I'm a baseball guy. I'm kind of a purist. I like grass and dirt. But when you live in Michigan and our season is in the spring, for the first time, I think we canceled one game this last spring. We probably didn't need to. It was the first time we've ever done that. So it really extends our season and allows our kids to be able to play longer and practice on those fields. So that's been helpful. The big thing we're looking to do at the high school is we need to add a wing on to our high school. Classrooms, I mean, that's the biggest reason, but we're also looking to add some new science labs and spaces like that. We're looking to add a few new programs. We don't know exactly what those will be yet. We're going to be kind of looking and see what are those new jobs or those new industries that are in the area that have a high need that our kids we could help prepare them for. And we're looking also to move our virtual academy which is currently at the 9th grade building, over to the high school. A lot of reasons for that. One of the big ones is the 9th grade academy is also starting to burst at the seams, and they need that space as well. So it's really going to help us, like you said, just kind of like tie the bow or ribbon on this and just kind of like feel like we've done well to give our kids the best experience possible, have our facilities up to date, and do so in the most fiscally conservative way possible.
Yeah. Every time we add something new, it allows us to potentially repurpose the space that some of those things were in. And so, Dana, talk a little bit about, and so, I think it's important to understand that we don't just get to put this plan on paper and go to the board and say, call an election. The Department of Treasury is heavily involved in this. And I get parents who ask me, I see all these new houses, the district is just exploding. How come you're not building more classrooms? Well, we know we work with an enrollment forecasting company that's very strategic about this and gives us numbers 10 years out. They stand firmly behind 3 years out and feel really solid about 5 years. So we can't just go adding space without meeting, the requirements of the Department of Treasury on current enrollment numbers, enrollment forecasting, and facility utilization. But one of the things they talk about in that process, when we did our meeting with those folks in Lansing, it's, well, you're adding new space. What would you be doing with any space that would be vacated? And it was good to have such an intentional plan with a little bit of autonomy and flexibility. So Dana, talk about repurposing when, we get the support and we build the new cafeteria, we've got some area that we want to redesign.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I think all the decisions that we've made have really been focused around instructional needs, and sometimes there's pockets of that we don't really think about. So as we have been dedicated to making sure that our buildings have math interventionists and reading interventionists and paraprofessional support and English language support, all of those roles require spaces. And so we have to get really creative, like Bernie was saying, about how we do that. So, for example, adding the new cafeteria will allow us to actually open up our current cafeteria to create some of those learning spaces for small groups so that we can reclaim some of our classroom space. And so it happens. It's just not necessarily we're adding a classroom. Yeah. So we look at our cafeteria that will reopen up our media center, which is currently being used by paraprofessionals. It will open up some of our office space and then allow us to create collaborative spaces for large groups of students to work together. It will give us a new music room because the cafeteria and music room will kind of have to flip sides of the building. And so that we'll relocate that. It will clear up a lot of traffic issues at Washington, which you would not know unless you were in our building. But at lunchtime, we have 150 kids standing in the main hallway waiting to get lunch because that's the structure that we have. So just a lot of efficiencies in moving around our building as well. Additional learning spaces. And it just seems like it's just a domino effect. When you get one, you can open up others and repurpose and you get so much more. Yeah,
that's interesting. You guys collectively made a decision in the 2021 bond when money was running short, and every month I'm saying we got to go through your list again. We got to and then you guys did a great job coming together as an elementary team and made that decision of, the media center renovations was in the 2021 bond, as was phase one, playground renovations. And then we began to see like just the escalated costs to do both. And you guys made the decision to say, we want to take those dollars and push them in on playground phase one.
Right. And because I think we saw we weren't ready for that piece yet, because we were realizing what was happening with our staffing and our students. And so it didn't make sense to do it then, because like I said, it was almost a gift because we were able to get some additional information and time.
Absolutely. So, Paul, what about you? Repurposing. There's a unique safety and security element to the repurposing at Hevel.
Yeah. So, I mean, amongst, like Ms. Hepner said, some of the big things are the music room's going to be redone, and we're going to have a space for that. Like currently, the music room is using my media center. And so it's going to give a better dedicated space to kind of put it up to par with the rest of the elementary buildings as they had their repurposing done. But for me as well, it also leads into changing up our secure entryway to be more uniform to what the other buildings have, and repurposing what we would use in that space for our office and for setting up some special ed classrooms, conference rooms, repurposing what would look like for our teacher lounge. So it really kind of changes a lot of the dynamic of it, while improving the safety piece of it, where it's just more uniform to what people would be used to. I think is important. So no matter what building parents are going to or visitors are going to, it's going to look similar.
Yeah. So instead of coming into what I call the secured hallway, which was a great intervention, it is secure. It interrupts the flow of your building every day, because now we have doors and a corridor that everyone's got to, where you go in the other buildings and you don't get past the lobby. So uniquely, those art and music rooms we know are right next to the lobby. So we're going to repurpose to do a new music room where special ed kids are and build the office there. And now you come in and you go into the office and you don't go into the building. Unless you're released from the office. Yeah. Anything else, Paul?
I think just in general, it's it's going to also give that space to teachers to have a lounge, which is also near their workroom. You think about the ease of a teacher as they, they're taking their lunches or doing different things, and having all the stuff that they need in one location is a little bit more convenient for them, and it allows for their traffic to be easier in and around the building and getting the things that they need to do to service our kids the best.
Yeah. So Bernie, you uniquely mentioned the repurposing of the RVA, lab moving over to the new wing, and then the ninth grade building capturing those classrooms, which are certainly needed. Anything else in terms of repurposing?
Oh, and that's jokingly, I'm like, what extra space per?
Well said.
If we could snap our fingers and build the addition tomorrow, we could fill it. And really what it would mean is, instead of having 2 PE classes with 40-ish kids sharing one gymnasium, we could, they could have their own space. It would mean our teachers having their own classrooms and not 40% of them sharing with somebody else. Our student supports that being in one spot versus having to change every hour of the day based upon, who might not be teaching that hour. Our media center could actually be a media center and not a testing center, and an intervention room and everything else that we have. And then we could have our staff offices come out of closets, because that's currently where they are sometimes too. So it would really, we've been super creative in trying to make sure that we can accommodate our students and putting their needs first always. But again, we're growing, and then even years down the road when this is built, assuming all goes well, we're going to be even bigger and more packed than we are today. So we'll be able to fill that very easily.
I appreciate, your vision for that, and the community wouldn't know that you think ahead of, if the community grew even more than what we could see in our 8 or 10 year projections, there's a vision for where it might go next.
Well, actually, if you don't, so that's one thing when we're working with the architects about maybe some preliminary drawings is, we know with the bond that we're hoping to get passed, what we can do with that, but we're actually going to have plans for another addition if we need it down the road. So It won't be we make one now and then who knows 10 years down the road we're having to rip out a bunch of stuff that we just did and it's wasting money. We're going to have that in plan, so it's really easy to do another edition if that's needed.
Yeah. So that's probably a good thing to shed just a little focus on is, the long range plan. We didn't really know the timeline, and the timeline is known now. If we get the support of the community on November 4th, this 2026 construction season is the last phase of the 2021 bond, to design and bid, and award and then construct, especially if things can only be done in the summer when school's not in session. We're really talking about 2027, 2028, 2029, and maybe some things going into 2030. This has been a lot of work and a lot of passion and the desire to get the support to reach the finish line. That doesn't speak to the fact that, another facilities assessment 3, 4, 5 years out and in a change in enrollment that isn't in our 10-year projections. I don't want to set the table to someone coming back and saying, wait a minute, you said it was the end of the plan. Like, facilities get tired, your home gets tired. You don't want your hot water heater. You want to get another couple of years out of it. And oh my God, your roof. Well, let's sell and move and buy a new house because I don't want to do the roof. Like, those things happen to us, and we got woefully behind. I've been educated that in some cases by some of you, by board members, by members of the community. It was arguably as much as 25 years that we couldn't get things passed and our facilities were in disrepair. And I speak with utter confidence that, this plan, the support of the community in 2016 and 2021, no increase limits the amount of funds we get. And we work within that. We ever had a conversation about asking for an increase.
Right. No, we have not.
We have never had that conversation. So we've been good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. It's done a lot of amazing things for your facility, all of our facilities, for our kids, for our staff, for our community. And we want to keep the train rolling and reach this finish line together that will take us, arguably right up to 2030. I'm not looking forward to the conversation the three of us are going to have about who gets to go first. But I welcome that. I welcome that because that means, the communities continue to be behind us and we have the funding to continue to make good decisions, to be a destination district, not only in Macomb County, but beyond. So absolutely. Any last thoughts, comments, shout outs?
No, the only thing, again, I'm going to say it again, the third lowest debt retirement rate in the county. That's pretty exceptional if you look at what we've done and what our facilities are. And you go around this county, there's few school districts that can compare themselves to what we have here, and to do it as really cheaply as we have that's again, as a taxpayer myself of here in Romeo, like, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I would say a shout out to our community for helping us, achieve all that we've been able to. It's obviously we live in a community that values education, values, top tier education and facilities for our students. So we're really grateful for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's exhausting work. There's a moral imperative to it. It doesn't matter what level you work in our district in. But it's truly, it's an honor, you know what I'm saying? And so this has really helped the culture of our district to get the community support, and the salmon floor has been replaced, and things like that. And our STEM teachers have their own unique learning space now. And, to be able to get our high school teachers to not be teaching on a card and that always ends up being our newest teachers, Bernie. And like, that's the last thing new, especially if they're beginning their career, like, let's give them a space. Let's give them their space and let's let them teach from it and not have to displace them when they're off for another teacher to come in and use their space. So I think the last thing I would say is I'm grateful for the support of our construction management company, Barton Mallow, our architects, French and Associates, some of those engineering firms that work directly with them, because they do this in so many places. and we lean on them. Because sometimes we get an idea and they're like, well, there's a couple places that have kind of had that idea, and let me tell you about how it's worked out for them. Or they put us in connection with them. So I'm grateful for that. Sometimes all we ever do is we want things sooner, we want things better, you know what I'm saying? And they're patient with us, but they're really invested partners that, we've been at this a long time with them, and we welcome the opportunity to continue that partnership. So if you've already voted by absentee or you're planning to vote by absentee, let's make our plan to vote, and let's make sure we're an informed voter. We do have one community forum left on Thursday, October 23rd, 9:30 a.m. at Croswell. That's really targeted for our folks who are planning to vote in person on the 4th. And the other thing that we've done is we've added voter information. So if you're not registered, you want to get an absentee ballot, you want to vote on the weekend before, there's information on, our municipalities and our individual precincts. So we're making that transition to let's vote, let's be informed, and let's vote. So thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week to keep up with Romeo Community Schools. This podcast is powered by the Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than Mitt TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.